With Trae Young on the floor for the Washington Wizards, this is the best the team has looked offensively throughout the entirety of this Wizards rebuild. Just how good can it be, and what does the ceiling look like next season? Greg Finberg helps answer that question today.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
See, family, you are locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, free and available every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a new way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with the college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel. Play your game. Alongside the DC Sports content creating savant Abdullah Ayubi, I'm Ben Strober, and I cover the Washington Wizards for Roundtable IO. And today we bring on our good friend from Bullets Forever and the host of the Wizards podcast, Greg Finberg. Greg, you and I, we chopped it up a little bit beforehand. It's NFL free agency. AB, you can chime in on this as well. Your thoughts on the Commanders free agency move so far here in day one?
A little less money spent than I thought, but I like Amik Robertson. Big Tim Settle, he was awesome for the Commanders a couple years ago, so that's cool to bring him back. And obviously, always the big $25 million signing. They added some edge help, which they needed to do, help the defensive line and the secondary. But I think they got a lot to do before I can sit back and think that like this team is competent. The draft has a lot to do with it. And based on AB's reaction, I think AB's a little upset. So I'll give him the floor so we can talk.
AB, go ahead.
Good cop, bad cop, Greg. I'm bad cop. Very underwhelming today. Top 5 in cap space and just not addressing wide receiver. I understand you got outbidded by the Indianapolis Colts, and I know this isn't Locked On Commanders, but man, there was a lot of hype going into day one. Tomorrow, day two, there better be some money thrown in the air, guys.
I hope you're right, AB. I do like the OA signing, though. But on today's show, we don't talk about the Washington Commanders. I promise that was it for the episode. But today we do talk about Trae Young, because we are all things Trae Young at the moment, because I think this is the best we've seen the offense look in the entirety of this rebuild. We also talk about Will Riley. It's going to be a crowded wing room next year. What does his role look like with this team based on what we've seen in recent weeks from Riley? And then we also give you a very important NBA tank update, because we are at that point of the season, of course. Greg, Trae Young has been electrifying, to say the least, over the first 2 games that we've seen him play. I think he's only played in 37 total minutes, but it might be the best 37 minutes I've seen personally offensively in this Wizards rebuild. Just how good has he been to you?
It's hard because, like, if he was bad, then you could always just hide behind the fact that he hasn't played since late December. But he's actually been pretty good, and it's a small sample size, just 2 games. So you don't want to come out here and say, like, he's the second coming of John Wall in DC, as much as Wizards fans would like to say that. But his first 2 games have pretty much been as advertised. Like, he missed his first 3 shots, his first 3 threes in that first game, missed 3 of 6, 3 of his 6 free throws. Clay had some rust to shake off in that one, but you saw in the second half in that third quarter against Utah, he looked awesome. And then you come out the next game against the Pelicans, and that looks more like the Trae Young you expected. 17 points, 8 assists. Ben, you tweeted out the video that went pretty viral of just like the vision he showed on that pass to Trey Johnson. And like we know Trey can score the ball. Like he's been able to get to the rim. He's gotten fouled a lot on 3-pointers, which is nice. But he also made his first 3 threes against the Pelicans. So we know that he can score. But what he is able to do for the rest of the team was why I was so excited that the Wizards acquired him. And I was so high on the move is because you have all of these rookies that are sort of just, they have an ultra green light, but you're kind of sat there thinking in an actual system with an actual point guard, what will this look like? You know, Keyshawn George is playing point guard when that's probably not the best role for him. You got Trey Johnson probably handling the ball way more than he should in this offense. And you have Alex Sarr, who's having to do a lot as a role man and not really getting fed the way he should because he's got a score first shooting guard really in CJ McCollum, who's playing point guard. He has a point guard for a bit in Bob Carrington, who can shoot the ball, but he's not going to find his open teammates as well as you want your point guard to be. And he's not really going to get near the paint, let alone break down a defense. And Trae Young immediately comes in and he solves all of those problems in about a 2-game size, which is awesome. You already saw he had 2 entry feeds to Sarr for a couple buckets in Alex's first game back since early February. He's going to open up that game a lot more as that chemistry builds. But then you obviously, Ben tweeted out, like the pass he had to Trey Johnson it's routine for some teams. And I mentioned this on my pod last night, but it's not routine for the Wizards. Like they've had Jordan Poole, CJ McCollum, Bub Carrington. Like those have been their guards, and they're good guards, but I don't know if they're good point guards per se. Trae Young is a point guard, and he's coming in here and he's finding Trey Johnson on that give and go where he's wide open. I mean, how many looks have you seen from Trey Johnson that are just catch and shoot wide open threes this year? The answer is not enough for a guy that's that good and that skilled from the outside. And Trae Young immediately comes in and they have that connection in the backcourt. Defensively, it's probably one of the worst backcourts in the league. And the Wizards will probably address that by putting Bilal or Keyshawn alongside them in the starting lineup or whenever on the floor. But offensively, there's no denying what Trae Young can do. And it's also no surprise that Trey Johnson was 21% from three in the 9 games since he had sprained his ankle. And then in the 2 games with Trae Young back, he's 9 of 16 from three, averaging 17.5 points. Like it's not a coincidence, right, that he is shooting a lot better because he's getting better looks. And you have Alex Sarr. When Anthony Davis returns, it's going to open up so much for the team. And in a 2-game sample size, you've seen Trae Young be able to score. You've seen him be able to get to the line. But the court vision, the ability to make his teammates better, to make this offense run, like that's why he was acquired. And I think he's already showing exactly why Will Dawkins made the move.
And then, like you mentioned, Greg, I know you mentioned it was limited sample size, but for next season, what is your thoughts on the possibility of the Wizards? And you have to go to the draft lottery as well. You want your lottery balls to be in your favor. The idea of them possibly being the 6th seed, is it too high?
I've been asked this a couple of times, actually. I don't think it's too high. I think like their ceiling is a top 6 seed. Like there's a lot of teams that are just better. They're more experienced teams, way more talented teams. You also have the unknowns of, can Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George continue to ascend like they did in their sophomore seasons? Will Trey Johnson, Bub Carrington, will they improve? Will Riley continue to play the way he has played? Like you mentioned, AB, what pick they get is very important. Keeping their pick is very important in the first place. But I think the roster is good. I think it's good enough to be a 5 or 6 seed. I also think health is a big concern. You know, Trae Young has missed a lot of time. We already know Anthony Davis isn't the most reliable in staying on the floor. And the Wizards have had their own injuries to their young core earlier this season, especially with Bilal Coulibaly missing a lot of time. So I think the 6th seed is attainable. I think a lot of things have to go right. But I think play-in is, I mean, if they don't make the play-in next year, I think that'd be pretty disappointing and pretty underwhelming. But there's a lot of talent in the conference. So I think it's 6 seed 100% could happen. But I think a lot of things need to go right in order for that to happen.
Shout out to Chase Hughes for getting these stats up in his article, which I'll link in the description. No player for the Wizards this season has posted a higher offensive rating than Young has at 123.1, according to NBA.com. And the Wizards have also been 12 points better per 100 possessions when he's on the court compared to when he sat on the bench. Greg, I think a lot of Wizards fans, when they think about next season, go, oh, this is going to be all dependent on how healthy Anthony Davis is. If Davis is healthy for 60 games, oh, like the sky is the limit. I think, honestly, after watching these games and just seeing what having a point guard like Young who can break down a defense and distribute the ball the way he has, he probably seems like the guy that's going to be more important to be healthy for them next season, especially if you do get a big in this draft like Boozer or somebody else. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I mean, I think just like he's probably going to be trusted to do so much in this offense. So he's going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to make most of the decisions. And when you lose a decision maker like that for a prolonged period of time, your offense is gonna suffer, and maybe your defense improves. Obviously, Trey isn't the greatest defender, but that's okay. Obviously, like teams aren't going to pay a guy that's that bad of a defender that much money, rely on him as much as the Hawks did, if he's not an unbelievable offensive player. And you watch him on the court, like he's small. It's just like it's so impressive to see, like at his size, for him to be able to just dictate the offense and get to whatever spot he wants, get his shot off wherever he is, draw contact. It's incredibly impressive. And like, yeah, Anthony Davis gives you a ton on the defensive end. But who's going to pass to AD in the role? Like, you're going to rely on Bub Carrington or a second-year Will Riley or a rookie point guard you draft, or Keyshawn George, who's playing point forward, to get him those open looks. I'd much rather have my point guard than my center, and especially on a team like the Wizards that's probably going to be pretty reliant on him. Obviously, you don't want to lose any of them, But if you're asking the question, Ben, I think Trey is probably the more reliable, or not reliable, the player that the Wizards need to rely on the most in terms of, how are we successful? And if they don't have him, that would be pretty tough.
I love, Greg, that you brought up size, because nowadays it feels like in order to be successful as a guard, you have to be 6'5", 6'6". And Trae Young, I think he's barely 6'1", so it's amazing how he just dictates how defenses approach him and try to limit him. Wanted to ask you quickly, the idea of landing Darren Peterson to DC, Greg, has your notion of him playing alongside these young core changed since you've seen Trae Young play a little bit?
Not necessarily. I mean, I know a lot of people have soured on him because they don't think he plays enough and they think he's sitting out. I honestly haven't. Like, he's still my top prospect. I think he's just an incredible talent. And I think if I'm the Wizards, like, yes, you have certain holes maybe on this team. And like with Trae Young, it's like, do you want to draft another point guard? In my mind, the Wizards are in a great spot because they have so much talent that they just need to continue to stack it. And if you get the number one pick, I'm still going to take the best player. I'm still going to take, in my mind, Peterson. If they take the Bansa, that's okay by me as well. I think they both fit in pretty well. I think they're both incredibly talented. But I'm not going to answer your question, I guess I'm not going to not take a player like Peterson just because I think Trae Young is the long-term answer. Because I do. I think they'll extend him this offseason and go decline his option. I think he'll be the point guard for a couple years at least. But I'm still going to take someone that I think is the best player. And if that's Peterson, in my mind, just because he's a point guard, I'm still gonna take him. And DP isn't the biggest, like, he's not the same player as Trey. Like, he's not racking up 5 to 10 assists every game. He's more of a scorer in my mind, which I think pairs pretty well alongside Trey if that's the case and they go with him.
Yeah, I think Trey Johnson would probably be in more trouble of not having a spot in the starting lineup if they got Darren Peterson, if that's just how I view it, because the off-ball numbers have just been ridiculous. All right, when we come back, I want to do a couple more things here on Trae Young before we get into Will Riley. That's next here on the Locked On Wizards podcast. There is nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. If you pull up the Game Time app and pick an upcoming game, you will see how you can get tickets locked in within minutes. I love seeing all of the in-price upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. Being able to see the view from the seat before buying makes the decision easy. Zone deals stand out. Choose the section. Game Time picks the seats and you save. Great last-minute options are available as well, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices right before tip-off. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Joined here by Greg Finberg from Bullets Forever and the Wizards podcast. Greg, one thing I think you've talked about it on your podcast, we've talked a lot about it on our podcast, is at times this year, because of the offense having no honest-to-God point guard, there's been a lack of creativity, I'd say, in terms of offensive sets. And maybe it's just because they were so limited and stuff they could run because of the personnel. And I've just noticed over the past 2 nights, the offensive sets they've been able to run with Young on the floor are a lot more creative, and they make a lot more sense for getting guys open looks. Like the one play that I tweeted out that, as you mentioned, went pretty viral. That was a play where Trae Johnson had the ball up top, and he kind of waved over Trae Young to go and start veering in towards like the inside of the arc. Sarr came and set a high screen off the ball above the three-point line, which I don't know if I've ever seen them run that type of set. And then it got back into Young's hands, obviously, who was able to find Johnson somehow wide open. Just what have you noticed in terms of like offensive creativity? When you have a guy like Young, do you feel like they've just unlocked new abilities for a lot of these players to play in a different role almost and run real sets here?
Yeah, and I think it's only going to get better. It's only going to get more creative as you get those reps, you create the chemistry. Because like even with as good as Trae Young has been, the 8 assists, he had 4 turnovers, and a lot of those were, I mean, like some of them are just he tries to go behind the back a lot, and you're like, okay, like sometimes it's cool. Sometimes it doesn't work. But a couple of times it was just like, oh, he thought someone would be there, or he thought he could get this pass to this guy, but he couldn't. And you'll see him hopefully start to cut those in half and cut down on them as the more he plays with his guys. But I think it's more of a trust thing. Like I think if you're Brian Keefe, if you're any of the coaching staff that draws up these plays, there's not many people in this league that I would trust with the ball in their hands to run a play to get guys in the right spots, to run the action the right way to get the open look than a guy like Trae Young, who's done it for years. I think last year led the league with 11 assists per game, has led the league in assists multiple times. He's a guy that they trust. And I think with the more trust that they build between them, the more reps they get, the more chemistry he builds with his guys, they'll continue to run more stuff like that. And I can't blame Brian Keefe. You can blame him to a fault for not running more off-ball stuff for a guy like Trey Johnson, because that's just a simple off-ball action. Then whoever has the ball just gets him the ball. But when you have CJ McCollum, who's not really a point guard running your offense for half of the first half of the season, how much can you really run? Like, how much do you really want to rely on CJ, who's going to go and score the ball? I'd rather, if I'm Brian Keefe, I'd rather run plays to get CJ an open look to score the ball rather than get CJ open to find someone else to get an open look. CJ was your best scorer, one of your better, honestly, players. Got a lot of flack, but he was pretty good in the first part of the season before he got dealt. And now you shift over, if you have Bob Carrington in there, he's still a young guy. He was really just thrown into the point guard role this season. Didn't do too well in that, has played better off ball. But if you're Brian Keefe, how much do you really want to trust him in his second year at 20 years old to get guys open looks? But now you're starting to see, like Ben mentioned, they're running a lot more complex stuff, a lot more sets that's pretty reliant on the point guard doing a lot in order to find the open guy. And when you have an experienced veteran point guard like Trey, I think it makes it easier for Keefe and the coaching staff to not only run those plays, but to trust whoever has the ball in their hands is going to make the right read. And I think Trey will do that majority of the time.
During our previous post-game show, Greg, a lot of Wizards fans were a little bit disappointed about the fact that we didn't see much of Will Riley and Trae Young sharing the court at the same time. We talked about how Trey Johnson, Alex Sarr could benefit playing alongside a guy like Trae Young. How do you see Will Riley fitting alongside him?
I think the reason for that, honestly, is because like they played Will a lot on ball, and like I like that. His mom's always saying he's a point guard. He's a 6'9" guard, which is just insane. But you've seen the handles. Like he can get by his defender pretty easily. Just as easily, he can get by them and then drop off a pass to the big, or he can run a pick and roll and find the roller, or he can run the pick and roll and find a skip pass to the opposite corner. And that's all at what he just turned 20 years old, like 3 days ago. So he's maturing, and I think in an on-ball role, they want to see more of that. You saw with Bub at the end of last year, like he played a lot and he played on ball just because Jordan Poole was out and they were missing a bunch of guys, and you saw him actually improve in that role. With Will Riley alongside Trey, I feel like it would sort of relegate him to the corner or to the wing. And yeah, he can catch the ball and he can shoot it better than most rookies. But I think they want to see him on ball, and alongside Trae Young, you might not get as many reps like that. So I think I actually think it's a smart decision. Like, what do you got? What are you playing for at this point in the season? You're playing for reps. You're playing to see what you have entering next year. And I'd much rather see Will Riley on ball with the bench unit than see him starting alongside Trae Young, but sort of not doing, the stuff that I think he's capable of doing, that he's clearly shown he's capable of doing recently.
He loves that spin move, Greg. I'm telling you.
Loves it. He's got to have some counters to that, because I think guys are starting to realize that that's his go-to. But really impressive move, yeah.
I don't know if anybody can counter whatever the hell he did on that one play where Reese entered him the ball and he caught it while spinning it and just like threw it up. I was like, what? I was like, how did he just do that? But he seemingly has one play every game where he does something like that. So it's interesting. And moreover, on the note, Will Riley's mom, she is the GOAT of Wizards Twitter, I'd have to say. Like, if any parent I've seen that actually interacts with a lot of people on Twitter, she's definitely one of the nicest and the best I've seen, because like there have been so many athletes throughout history that have parents that like argue with people or like way too heavily advocate for their son and get mad when they receive any type of criticism. She's just overwhelmingly positive, I would say. So that's just a funny side note on Will Riley's mom, who's become kind of like a mark on Wizards Twitter here as of recent. Will Dawkins was on the Sports Junkies this morning, Greg, and he talked about Will Riley. He said that he's really taken some of those steps like Keyshawn did at this part of last season, that he's got a lot of work to do, but he's going to have to keep putting in that time. And the good thing about Will is he's not afraid of that. I think the reason we saw such a big leap from George this year was because of the work he put in this summer and then what he did in the AmeriCup. I feel like Riley is a similar type of player to me in terms of being a breakout candidate for this team next year, but we do know this will be a very crowded wing room. You might get another wing on this team at some point. But Greg, just like let's take the draft out of the equation here based on who they have on the roster. Do you see Riley kind of slotting in as a six-man type of guy off the bench for you right now? What are we looking at role-wise for Riley with the draft not part of the equation?
I mean, yeah, if he keeps playing the way that he's been playing, I don't know how you can deny him a spot in next year's rotation. It's also a bit different approach because this year was like, let's get all of our young guys as many reps as possible because we're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to win. We actually benefit the most from losing. So let's get them these reps. They have an ultra green light, and let's see what we can do. Now entering next year, that changes a little bit because the expectations are different. You're no longer in this deconstruction phase. You have your roster. You have the guys that you want to move forward with, and you want to try to compete. And so you're going to put the best guys in the rotation to do that. You're no longer just putting guys in there because they're younger or because they have upside. Like it's winning time, and you got to try to at least showcase that you're a competent team and you're trying to compete. And I think the way that Will Riley is playing, he should be a part of that rotation. But we can look at the roster and we can break it down. I mean, I think you obviously, Brian Keefe has run typically 9 or 10 man rotations. This year, more so 10 man, just because he has so many guys to get to. And like you see some nights, like Champagny hasn't played in 2 games. He's not hurt. And people have asked me why. Guys, we all know why. It's the same reason Jamir Watkins, before he got hurt, was just randomly not playing one of those games in Atlanta. Like they know what they're doing, and that'll change next year. But there's a lot of bodies in the rotation. Like obviously Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Alex Sarr, Trey Johnson, Keyshawn George, Bilal Coulibaly. Like those are 6 that are pretty easily in that rotation. Again, I would assume Champagny is also a part of that equation. That's about 7 guys right there. And I think Will Riley as well. Bob Carrington, they obviously he hasn't had a good season. He's been pretty bad at times, point blank. But they're still pretty high on him. They traded Denny Avdia to get that pick. I would assume he's probably a part of it, and that you have, I would assume, a top 8 pick. You have a lot of guys that can fit, and you'll still have Cam Whitmore, who's going to be healthy next year. You have Jaden Hardy, who you acquired. Like there are a bunch of guys on this team that probably won't play early on. But I don't think one of those guys will be Will Riley, especially if he keeps playing the way that he has, because he's 6'9", and he has positional versatility. And if he adds some weight, he could possibly guard 1 through 4. He's not the greatest defender, but he has the wingspan to affect stuff on the perimeter. And he has the size to be a capable defender down low if he adds some weight. I think the versatility, let alone on top of the development, and you saw what Key could do from year 1 to year 2. If we see a similar jump from Riley, I would easily have him as one of those 9-10 rotational pieces.
He's my breakout candidate for next year. All right, when we come back, we get a tank update, and I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler right here. The Brooklyn Nets just won a basketball game. More on that when we come back. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. Just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's a relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel's giving you a way to turn that energy into an even bigger potential win with the College Basketball Parlay Profit Boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your bill. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, or ride with the team you've been following all season long. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Here with our good friend Greg Finberg from Bullets Forever and host of the Wizards podcast. Greg, I wanted to ask you guys this. When it comes I want to ask you first because I kind of talked to Ben about this. The idea of his son Cameron Boozer cracking the top two, because it just seems like it's AJ and DP for 1 and 2. Is there a possibility, regardless of the team, that you can see Cam coming into two?
I think he's definitely the more polished prospect of the three, but I definitely think he has a lower ceiling of the three than Peterson and Dabansa. And I think it all depends who gets the pick. Like we saw the last 2 years, I believe the 10th or 11th, worst team in the league was able to somehow jump up to get one. And a lot of those picks, like Cooper Flag, was pretty consensus at one. And even Risache was sort of like the Hawks. Everyone knew he was going to go there. It was him or Sarr. And obviously Sarr forced his way to DC, and that's worked out pretty well for the Wiz. But I think it's dependent. Like you look at the lottery, there's going to be some teams that maybe they value a Boozer's skill set and more. Maybe they somehow get into that spot and they're like, we don't know if we have 2-3 years to wait for these guys to really start to ascend. Maybe we want to start to contend now. And if that's the case, then maybe they go with Boozer. There's obviously the combine. There's March Madness. There's a lot of tests that teams run. You have individual one-on-one workouts. Like there's a lot still to be seen. And sometimes like Bob Carrington was mocked towards like the end of the lottery and maybe even in like the late teens. But as David Aldridge, I think, was the one that reported it, he had like a workout the night before the draft with the Wizards. And then they were like, we have to find a way to get this guy. So a lot can change. I personally wouldn't take him over those two guys, but I also cover a team that needs upside and that values upside. And to me, Boozer doesn't really fit what Will Dawkins is building or what they have sort of built this whole thing around, which is positional versatility, high upside. And that just doesn't scream Boozer to me. I think he's going to be a great NBA player. But again, like Indiana is a team that if they get there, maybe they value him. They just lost Miles Turner. Maybe they're like, hey, we think we can win next year. We think Boozer is better than Dabansa, and we're going to go with them. Like I could see that. But if the Wizards have a top 2 pick, I'd be shocked if they didn't come away with either AJ or DP.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of top 2 picks, the Wizards maybe just got closer to being in a spot where they might actually land the second pick. So now they have sole possession of the third worst record in the league. The Brooklyn Nets just beat the Memphis Grizzlies. They're now 17-47, so the Wizards have a half-game lead, a chance to get to full game lead tomorrow if they do lose to Miami. The way it's shaping up, I heard you talk about this on your pod earlier, it seems like the Wizards are in a phenomenal spot right now just based on strength of schedule alone, Greg. It seems very, very unlikely that Washington would even finish outside of the bottom 4, yet alone the bottom 5 record-wise, just the way the schedule shapes up here.
Certainly. And I'll explain it, I guess, the way that I did on my pod yesterday, like you mentioned, Ben. When I talked last night, the Wizards had the easiest remaining strength of schedule because the Grizzlies just played the Nets and, like you mentioned, lost. They have jumped the Wizards, so they have the easiest, and the hardest. Now Washington has the second hardest remaining strength of schedule, which in most years is like, that sucks. You're coming down the final stretch. You don't want to play all of these great teams, but the league is backwards and the Wizards want to lose. And so this is actually welcome news for them that they have the second hardest schedule in the league. And to me, like I mentioned, they have this 8-game stretch. They've lost 8 in a row. And you thought, Ben, that this might be when they bring Trey back, and they pretty much are, right? Like he's still on a minutes restriction, but they brought him back just in time for this 8-game stretch where they don't play a single team that's not currently in a playoff spot or a play-in spot. They have to play 2 times against Detroit. They have to play Golden State. They have to play the Knicks. They have to play the Thunder, the Magic, the Heat. They're playing some really tough teams, and it's very possible that they have a 16-game losing streak. And then you're at that point, you're like, well, who do they have to play? What games realistically are winnable for this Wizards team down the stretch? I in my mind, just 4. I'd be shocked if they won any of the games outside of these 4, which is 1 at Brooklyn, 1 at Utah, and then 2 at home late in the year against the Chicago Bulls, who are completely tearing it down and tanking. I think those are 4 games that they could possibly win. Outside of that, I'd be pretty surprised if they won. Like, yes, they could beat a Golden State at home. And yes, maybe they can go on the road and beat a Trailblazers team that's not that good. But those, for the most part, are going to be teams that are trying to win and in playoff hunts. And the Wizards are doing the opposite. And if that's the case, those 4 wins, that's their ceiling. If they win all 4, that puts them right at 20 wins. And if you look at the standings right now, if they finished with 20 wins, went 20-62, that would mean that they can't fall outside the bottom 5 of the league. Like New Orleans, Dallas, they have 21 wins, and there's no way that they don't win another game for the rest of the season. And then you have Utah. Obviously, you have to play, but Utah's also not going to go 0-21 or 0-22. I mean, they should be banned from the league if they do tanking that bad throughout the rest of the season, because I think they still have to play Sacramento, and they might have to play some other tanking teams. And so all this information is to sort of tell you that the Wizards are in a good spot. And they were in a bad spot a couple of days ago, or weeks ago, actually, when they won 2 against Indiana. But they've sort of pulled it back. They've lost 8 in a row. And now they have a really tough stretch where they have, I think, 19 games remaining. And I would say 4 of them are potential wins. And any of the ones outside of that, I'd be surprised. So you're looking at maybe a 20-21 win ceiling for this team, which I think certainly guarantees them a bottom 5 record, and in all likelihood should guarantee them in the bottom 4.
Man, this is last off topic, but speaking of Sacramento, did you guys see the presser of Russell Westbrook pressing the media? Ben, wasn't that Matt George, former host of Locked On Kings, that he was kind of getting heated with?
Yeah.
Like, bro, that's crazy. I've never seen that before.
I was watching his podcast after that, and I was seeing a little bit of the discourse around it. But yeah, it was wild. I've never
just imagine like one of the Wizards players did that to us. We just be like, what the heck's going on here?
The Wizards don't have a single player, I think, that would ever do anything like that at the podium. But Russ is also he's just a different, like, he has a different type of intensity to him that a lot of Wizards players don't have or haven't developed yet, I would say. So that's all I really got on that. But I don't. What did you think of that, Greg?
Dude, yeah, Greg. Sorry to quickly. He was just like, one of the guys was like, you guys are the worst record in the league." But it was like, okay. So it was a shock because I was like, man, I've never seen it so intense. And I can imagine as a reporter, you try not to get emotional because you just don't want to feel like you're getting attacked.
I mean, it's a tough spot for them. Like, I mean, is Matt supposed to start like lashing out back at him, and then he's being the unprofessional one? Like, it is a tough spot. But also, I like Ben. Like, I don't follow the Kings, but I watched the pod because I was like, this is really interesting. And I saw some of the discourse around it. Like, Matt George is pretty outspoken about the team, and I think you can be outspoken, but the way that you're outspoken is very important. And I think maybe there were some lines that he crossed. Maybe you shouldn't have been talking about players that way, because players do like see stuff. And so like if I go back, like when I talk about a player, like it's never personal, obviously. And you always try to, at least if you're going to say something negative about a player, you need to be able to back it up. You need to do it respectfully. And to me, it seems like Russ or some other players felt that what Matt was, because it seemed like it was pretty much just at Matt. But it seemed like he thought that at least he was being disrespectful. But again, what is Matt supposed to do? Like he can't go back at Russ. And they kind of did, right? You mentioned like you guys are the worst in the league. The organization hasn't won, and Russ really didn't answer those questions. So I don't really think much came out of it, but it went viral. So
look, losing is hard on a lot of people. It's hard on people that cover the team. It's hard on the players. Unless you're in a situation like the Wizards where you have a realistic, bright future for next season, and losing is important for you right now, I think everybody is like kind of on board. Obviously, the players don't want to lose. Like, I'm not insinuating that. I know the players do not want to lose out there, and I can say that as a fact because I've heard the players talking about, like, we didn't win the game. So, they don't even really care about putting up great numbers if they didn't win the game. But for us covering the team, we're obviously in a much easier spot right now than Sacramento is, because I think it's been really bad without any type of direction in Sacramento for quite some time. So I know all of us are thankful that we at least have some direction here in DC, because
we have
it wasn't
Justin
always like
Champagny,
this.
Ben.
Greg, you covered some teams that had no direction, so I know you're definitely feeling a lot better right now than you were years ago.
yeah, they know what they're doing, which is cool. Like, they're not going 35-47 and saying like, let's run it back. And I think that's probably why the discourse is so good, because like the front office has been pretty transparent. Like, they haven't come out and said we're going to lose a lot of games, but they've said we might not be good. But at least the fan base can rally behind it and say this sucks, but at least they know what they're doing. And there's been some returns. Like, they've drafted well, they've traded well, they brought some stars in for the fans to be like, hey, here's your award. Like, we got a good team for next year, versus the team like the Kings that they have no real direction. So it's hard to get because they have great fans, but it's hard to really get them going when the product, like you mentioned, has been so bad for so long.
And just to quickly go off Greg, I mean, we have two guys, second rounders that got contracts, Jameer Watkins and Tristan Vucevic. When is the last time we've done that? It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, really good front office. That's what happens.
Yeah. It's been fun. Next year is going to be a lot of fun, and it's fun, as always, to have you on the pod here, Greg. Thanks for joining us, as always.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Always nice to see you. Always nice to talk to you as well, AB. Always nice to be on the pod. It's a great pod. One of the best Wizards pods. It's been the best pods in general. Always fun to chop it up with you guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you saying that. Be sure to check out Greg and his work at Bullets Forever. Check him out on Twitter at Greg Finberg. And then check out his podcast as well. He gives you game recaps. And whenever you might else need a host of the Wizards podcast, get that on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. It'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Wizards. We'll be back tomorrow for the recap of Wizards and Heat tomorrow night. So be sure to be locked in for that. For our guest today, Greg Finberg, my co-host Abdullah Ayubi, I'm Ben Strober. Sign off.